one of them.
Howdy.
How you doing?
Okay.
Hi there.
Hi.
Look like it's getting ready to break up anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Must have been much going on, huh?
That was just a lot split.
Well, hello, neighbor.
Hey,
That was a lot.
Are you live?
That was a lot.
Still kicking.
All right.
DJ Road.
Okay.
Pond is.
Yeah, so Kelly's.
You doing all right?
Oh, Pat.
You doing all right?
My back here? Yeah, it was.
Hi.
That's right, you did move out there.
Take me back in Monday.
I saw his house was caved. That sounds bad.
I'm graduated down. I'm 2 levels down now where I was.
Did they make that out of the aluminum from the frame on that bike? Yeah, it's sentimental about now.
No road deal.
No? Okay. Picture there will be out in a few minutes.
Yeah, we could turn the meeting, so it should be
Doing all right?
pretty soon, I think.
We do my elbow Monday.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
Yeah, you told me that.
Is there any more discussion that needed on what they just did this statement?
You'll be just the way it was brought up.
Okay.
So whatever goes forward, they will fix it.
Okay.
That's what Schlepping they did discuss after the last meeting.
Was anyone walking by? Well, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. First order of business, has everyone had a chance to read the minutes and still leave it more time? All right, let's take them in order. Let's go ahead and take the minutes from the February the 2nd, 2012.
That's a single page.
That's a single page. We need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
You want to record?
Yes.
Chris May made a motion, second by,
I have it on video. I have it on video too.
okay, we'll make a picture this way.
Yeah, I'll second.
Motion by Chris May, second by Katie Henn. All in favor of approving the February 2nd minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. February 23rd, 2012. Have I had a chance to review it? Do we have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion on that one as well.
Chris, second?
I'll second.
All in favor for 2012? For February 23rd? Motion, yeah. All approved?
Aye.
Approved. Okay, March 22nd. Let's see, that had to be done by just something was here, right? So that'd be Deb, myself, and who else? Okay. All right, motion to approve. Deb, second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, that puts us up to Steve. Only thing we did, Mayor, was just approve the past minutes.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm late.
I cost you a cup of coffee.
I know.
Okay, the next order of business is that we'll go ahead and take care of the charter change on how the vacancy of the president of council is. I think everybody was in agreement on, the only thing that was left for discussion was to whether that position be filled by a member of council or whether it be open by a selection of the council regardless.
Or your other one that you brought up was you didn't want somebody appointed. You said it would have to be somebody elected. Correct.
We dropped that
How do you do? Okay.
because this takes care of the problem that I had with it.
Okay.
I still think it should be someone from council. I don't think it should be
And
somebody.
I don't think it should.
What takes care of the problem you have with it? What did you say takes
But
care of it?
by making an elected, with the council electing the position,
Jim-
what I had a problem with was when it was automatic, the president taking automatically assuming that position. That's what I had a problem with. And it could have been elected. So to make it clear and everything, why don't we just go ahead and vote under the proposal? Unless we want to have a little bit more discussion on it.
I'll discuss it first.
Okay, go ahead, Ron.
Did you see, Dave sent me some wording.
Yes. And that's
Has
what
everyone had a chance to read that?
and that's the same wording we've been talking about.
What is that, Jim? Is that
What it
this?
is, it's the one where we're eliminating the automatic movement of the president to take that position and adding a vacancy. It should be,
I saw it on an email, I'm not sure it's in the spec, is it in this way?
it's in his stack too.
This little short looking.
Oh,
That's the one we're
oh,
talking
okay.
Where is it at? That's if,
Where am I looking?
Oh, here, this is the second
Oh,
page.
okay. That's my first page.
It's on the back of the agenda, I do believe, right?
Yeah, and then this one as well.
about. Okay. This shows what's being taken out of it.
and I know a set of agendas and so on. that-
Oh. Yes, this is
Page 7, is that the very first page?
let's see, oh,
This one here.
Yeah, that one.
let's see, where is that one? We do have one.
There was an email from Dave Morrison which essentially was saying the
Same
same
thing.
thing.
Do you have, is there two there? No, I saw one.
Another stack.
Is there another stack around?
Something like that.
Ron, isn't that right there what you're looking at?
What? This is what I.
No, oh,
Here we go.
yeah,
Here it is.
yeah. Ron, I think it's that second, you just flipped. I
Yeah,
think it's,
yeah,
oh,
I haven't hidden, I still have one more. If anybody wants to see it. On the left.
So at the first meeting we had, the second meeting we had, I think everybody was in agreement, except for how the council does the selection. Ron feels that it should strictly be a council, have to go by a council person. Ron, go ahead and give your rationale.
Well, didn't Mike, you said you checked a few other places and that was, you didn't see any place where it was just anybody?
Well, they either specified a succession of people already in positions within
Right.
the city government. And they named those positions. Some were, some vary by, whether it's a president or a vice mayor, even a vice mayor that had already been in position. And then it just went down from that. So they were pretty much named.
Pascos, I know they named someone from council, I believe.
Yeah, it was somebody that was already positioned within either council or in government, in the city government, that were being moved into that position where necessary. Not from, I don't recall seeing one that was going back out as for an election or anything like that. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, and then to me, just when we always gotta look back at the guys that actually put the whole thing together. Their intent was for someone from council to have obviously be the step in for mayor, not just anybody, or they'd put that in the beginning.
But this suggestion in 5.06 would be majority vote of the members elected to council. Would that not cover it?
I would think it would.
Because is that generic enough to where council makes that call? If they want it from council, it'll be from council.
That's my feeling.
That's kind of the way I read this when I said it. It sort of makes
It
sense.
doesn't get you to a problem later on.
And they could not want it, and they could appoint a city planner, I mean, or a city manager.
You know, we're not major government.
But someone that has handled that position is what I'm saying.
Some even mentioned the law director.
Yeah, that was Newark, but that's an elected position and full time. It would certainly not be suitable for, especially in 2012.
I personally feel very comfortable with the proposal.
Now, Ron, would you interpret this verbiage in 506 as giving council enough authority to make a decision whether to draw from council?
Well, I'm certain it will. I would almost be certain that they're not gonna go outside and pick anyway.
Well, that's the way I read it.
There's no problem. If they want to do that, they can do that.
And I think that was the purpose of
Right.
opening this up and
Right.
making it so open that it would be just purely left up to council.
The way I drafted this 506, it's identical to the provision for replacing the auditor, except I put in the word mayor and where auditor is in section 606.
Dave, any comments?
No, I'm not even sure I have that copy. Still looking here.
Should be the first page.
That packet that you-
Here, this is what I,
That's right
That's
there.
it.
what I did.
Yeah, well, mine has the publication of ordinance.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Can we take that section out?
Yeah, I saw that,
and then
that's
add
the
this?
email, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. I just made the note that it'd probably most likely be someone from council anyway, would it not?
More than likely, probably 900 times out of, or 99 times out of 1,000 is gonna be someone from council.
That's why,
Yes.
that's why I had
Yep,
the note I
I'm fine.
made.
Then my question is, why change it then?
Because right now it's an automatic move from the president.
But
Yeah,
it works, but the whole thing worked. Our charter worked. It provided us with the mayor,
I don't agree.
and if the one turned it down, the next one stepped up. And if the second one had stepped out, council would have another vote, and put another person as president, and they'd been
I
there.
don't agree. That explains it out.
Part of that is the fact that person may not step forth to be president of council because he has to step forth to mayor, as it's stated now. I think we may lose someone good for president of council.
I don't think it ever entered people's minds.
Well, it's stated that way, that you.
Yeah,
your
but I'm just looking back at all the times people's been council president. I don't think that was ever a deciding factor whether they was gonna be council president or not, because it never entered their mind.
And they don't have to, I mean, and they.
Yeah,
shouldn't
they
have.
turned it down.
They don't have to be mayor if they don't want to.
On the rationale that I put together when I first did it, says making these changes will no longer require the president of council to automatically become mayor. There may be someone who will do a great job as councilman or president of council, but not be able to take over as mayor due to the circumstances at the time, and the mayor being a full-time job. This is also how the vacancy for the auditor is filled. The president of the council would still fill in for the mayor on a temporary, short-time basis. And I'm ready for a call for a vote.
Well, I interpreted that to be that let's give council a little more leeway and just use their decision making.
That's the idea for it.
Yeah.
So what's up for a vote now is to make the change that is proposed. That's the one that's in front of you. The change is 507 right here. That's what we're talking about.
I guess I'd like to make a comment real quick. Ron, I guess where I would disagree with you, or at least from my point of view, is, you know, when I was on council, I might have voted for somebody to be the president of council who I wouldn't have been comfortable with being the mayor if it came down to that. I would rather have the option to have another vote for who's gonna steer the ship on, you know, just because we put somebody, because they're gonna sit there and run
That's a good
that.
point.
So that's, I mean, that's the way that I look at it is just because they're the president doesn't mean, you know, when I was one of the seven, I would have been confident with that person, you know, being the mayor. So that's why I would support it.
Well, it just sounds like I'm probably the only one to vote against it, but
Sure.
my whole point is that if it worked, why change it?
Okay, we'll call for a vote. All
Can I
in
ask,
favor?
I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask a question. In the case of council then filling a vacancy, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. Is the council then limited only to existing council members?
Open.
Everybody,
Yes.
anybody that lives in this, that would be qualified.
Right. A lot of it's based on what Chris said, and what, if they want to make from the council, that's their choice.
If the mayor Newark moved in here and retired and wanted to run for Heath mayor.
And the council supports him.
Okay.
So that's a vote. Let's go. All in favor of the motion, signify by aye.
Aye.
Nay?
Nay.
Aye. Carried. So that was done.
We're still out of the vote going.
Okay.
Gotta explain to the public.
Here's my copy of rationale. If that goes to the ballot, I'm not going to use some words like that for the rationale.
Okay.
It's in italics there.
This is not anything official, just curiosity more than anything. I think we touched on this once before about who does the phrasing of these for the,
The election board, I believe, doesn't it?
He does. He along with the
Well,
election board.
I'll submit what you agreed to. The
Is it a
rationale, they can change, but, they can't change what we're doing here. They can't say, for example, it has to be somebody from, a member of council who gets elected or something like that.
When it goes to the ballot, though, and what we put forth is a title, which describes what we're doing, and then the actual change in the verbiage. So that's
Now, the other issue we have left is the point on communications and making things available. And I had asked the mayor to do some research on his side as far as implementing something. And then the law director was going to look at anything that would be legal or illegal or get us into trouble. We want to make sure that we don't do something that's going to bite us in the butt, or that's going to be in existence for 10 years.
Well, my question, why do anything at all?
That's why we're
Council can do it right now, and some mayor, if they want to, why
That's
should we
we're-
why
that's
should we
why
limit
we're
it to the
gonna have
charter?
the mayor give us his opinion of what's good and what isn't bad.
My opinion is this should not be the charter.
Mayor?
Do we need to vote on, before we go that way, do we need to vote on that section 506?
We would, it's all together.
It's all together, I didn't know you had to do, to count
It's all
for
together.
one
Because you
and,
can't do one without the other.
right, but I didn't know if you had to vote on both of them together. Okay.
It's all together.
They would appear on one ballot initiative then? Is that-
Go ahead.
You know, there's a camera in the council chambers now, and I've been wrestling for, it seems like 2 years now, trying to make this thing work so that at minimal, no to minimal cost to the city, that we be able to show, have available on the city's website the most recent council meeting. And there's a company that's been working with us on it, and I appreciate the time and effort that they've put into trying to help make this thing work. But as of today, it still doesn't work. We started recently working with our contracted IT person, who shed a little bit more light on this and downloaded a software program that really is going to be the last straw as far as the equipment that we have in place now to try to do this. If this software works, then we would have the capability to put a video recording of council meeting on the city's website available for viewing. If it doesn't work, I'm pretty much resigned to the fact that the hardware that we have in place right now is what the problem is, according to our IT person. To have the correct hardware in place, Rich is saying would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $6,000, give or take. and that's to be able to have us put that video on our website. There, according to Rich, there are some internet security issues that would definitely need to be worked out if we were to just link to, say, like if you put something on like YouTube or something like that. And I don't know that I'm, you know, I certainly would not want to open up the door to any threat, any more of a threat than what we already have, you know, because obviously we have a lot of confidential information that's housed on our servers. So I have been trying to obtain the goal that's outlined in this consideration for the Charter Review Commission, and to my frustration, have so far not been successful. I want to share with you, as I read this, one major concern that I had. When I look at the wording of it, in a couple of different places it says, including video recordings made available and archived on the World Wide Web at www.heathohio.gov. First of all, that word archived to me means that once that video file is there, it remains there. 8 years, 18 years from now, it remains there. I have no idea how much it would cost in server space to do that over an unknown period of time. But obviously, as you know, each server has a limited amount of file capacity storage on it, and when you reach that capacity, you got to get another server in order to make it work. That's a potential cost that would be troubling to me. The other thing too is the idea of stating, you know, on World Wide Web at www.heathohio.gov. I believe that today this might be a very, very effective way of the city to be able to communicate to residents what's going on in city council meetings. I don't know if that will be the case 10 years from now. I don't know if that will be the case 20 years from now. I know that 10 years ago, the technology probably existed to do what we're able to do today. 20 years ago, I don't think it did. I'm pretty sure it didn't. What concerns me about putting that language in the charter is that once it's in the charter, that's what you have to do. And in the way this is worded, the way that you have to do it. Now, I don't know what technology is going to bring 10 years from now. I don't know what technology is going to bring 20 years from now. But something tells me that the way the advancements in technology have been coming over the past 20 years, that 20 years from now, this probably isn't going to be the most effective means by which the city would be able to communicate to the residents what's going on in city council meetings. However, because it's in our charter, we would be locked into doing it that way until it was removed from the charter by a vote of the people. That concerns me as well, because I can remember 10 years ago or so, You know, Windows 95 was still supported. Windows 97 was supported as operating systems on computers. Those are no longer supported anymore. You can't get software for it. Microsoft doesn't support it. That's old technology that's been kicked to the curb. My concern would be that having this in the charter could lock us someday into using old technology. I had lunch about a month or so ago with David, and if you were going to mention this, I don't mean to steal your thunder.
No, I wasn't.
But I thought David had a very good analogy for this. You know, the city charter is kind of like our Constitution, right? Having this wording in our charter today would be akin to, at the time that the Constitution was drawn, them saying, and all correspondence with federal government must be done on on parchment paper and quill pen. At the time, that was that was a great technology of being able to communicate with people. Obviously, it's not the technology that's used today. I agree completely with the goal of what this is looking to do. As I said, I've been working to try to make it happen, except for the archived part on the web. But I agree completely with the goal that this is trying to achieve, which is better and more open communication between city government and the citizens of Heath. I think that by administrative initiative or by council ordinance, that goal, you know, that would be appropriate places for this goal to try to be achieved. I don't think that the city charter is the place where this goal should try to be achieved. And I guess that's my issue with having it in the charter.
Dave, any comments?
I don't have any policy comments. I'm just here to do the Scrivener work once you decide what you want to do. And I really don't know enough about technology to say what would happen. I do.
Quill pens, don't you?
Yeah, I do remember reading that the federal government had a lot of data in archive that there's no equipment, no machinery exists to read it. I don't know if it was real tapes or what it was, but or punch cards maybe. But they've got it and they can't use it. That's the kind of thing we need to look at, I really don't know of anybody besides someone who's in that business who could tell us whether this would be working 10, 20, 100 years from now, for that matter. Because, you know, once it's in the charter, it's there to stay until somebody changes it. And I think that's something that would need to be given a lot of thought, and I would want to have an expert tell us about whether you can make it work or not. But it seems unlikely to me that it would, because the history has been that you've got all this data that you can't read because there's no hardware to support it anymore. Just as Mark was saying about the Windows 95, when that was a big deal, and now it's not supported, and a lot of things you can't do that you would have needed to do.
Chris, share your hand.
I guess my point when you were saying 10, 20 years or whatever, I guess I don't worry about that because we can do this every 10 years. So I guess I'm looking at a window of not more than 10. So, but I understand your point with that. I agree with that, and I sent an email out that I agree that this isn't where we should do it. Becky, I understand because I was around and I know all that, and I'd be curious to know how things are with Kelly now, obviously he isn't receptive to doing. It seems like it should be something pretty simple and you shouldn't have to do this. I totally agree with you, getting the stuff out there, but I think that this just it doesn't seem like the place to put it, but I understand your frustration. You've been trying for years, and maybe this is an end around and a way of trying to force that. It seems like it should be so simple. The frustrating part is you've got the minutes for the meetings, but you don't have any of the committee stuff. Tim could force them to turn over their committee notes to Lynn, and that could be attached in it, and that could be that simple, But I understand there's been resistance, and I know that it goes back to cameras and all that stuff, and that kind of stuff. But it shouldn't. It should be a lot simpler than it is. But I understand why you want to get this done, and why you're trying to get this done. I agree that I don't think that it should be in, if we're going to call it our constitution or there to do it. But I understand your frustration because you've been trying to get it done forever, and you can't get something that simple done
Maybe
where it
people
should
want
be
it
pretty
done.
simple.
May I
People
go
want
on
it
that?
done.
Chris? Anything else?
No.
Blaine?
Well, first of all, this is where it belongs. This is the only document that exists in the city that is the people's document. This outlines how the people of the city of Heath want our government to operate.
You told people you're talking to you.
No, I'm only here,
We don't wanna
and I
get-
know
we
you've
don't
got
wanna
this
get personal
personal.
here. Just
It's
just
not
state your opinions and go from that
Things you
point.
called us in Florida wasn't personal.
I only,
Let's not keep things personal. Let's just state your issues and we'll go from there.
well, this is where it belongs. The only people's document. The council cannot change it. We can have a mayor that basically could shut down the website, or, I'm sorry, Mayor, but the website is in total disrepair. The technology has stepped back years from where we were. This is ridiculous that we can't get an open government installed here. I'm sorry, but the record should be public. You should not have to come to City Hall and request a document. Things should be turned around. The government should be supplying this stuff openly. And for the minutes, it hasn't been going on 3 years. I've got a story here that he took his own minutes when he was in council in the 80s. This is over 30 years old. This is ridiculous that the government can't be open, and this is all about home rule. Our document doesn't have to say the same thing that every other town says. It is a 10-year span, and council can, by their vote of 2/3, put it to a referendum and change it down the road at any time they want. And back to this whole deal. What is the enforcement? We've got an air pollution control panel that's never been filled. So what kind of enforcement? I gotta sue you to get you to do it if it's in this book. Still, if you don't do what's written, if we change this and it's written that way and you don't do it, what can we do? We have to sue you. You think I'm gonna be running around suing the city? No. We need to put it in here. This is part of the communication lack of. This city has such a pitiful problem with communication that you councilmen and mayor, you don't realize it, how bad it is. He had to demand his committee meetings be put in the record. No one will say squat to Lynn. I calm down. It's not personal. This is about our city. I want to live in a better city. If this is one small step to making better communication, thank you, Lord. And the first one, you said if I'm going to write something, make it simple. Look at the first one that we're talking about here. The clerk. Having it online and demanding that she put it online. the whole ordinances before they're voted on. You've got to come down here and get a copy. The only notice anybody gets is a little title that says nobody knows what that title, what the legislation's about. You need it online. And
Who's gonna read it?
my Lord,
But, you know, all the years
If
on
you-
council, I never had people coming to me in droves of people, somebody wanted stuff from the web. Stuff you here. That tells me.
if you put it there, people will come, trust me. You do your taxes on there, the website. We need to get, this is such a valuable tool. The web is in its infancy. It is going to change how we do everything, let alone the government. This is just a smidgen. I've got what Sunshine would like is a whole ordinance. This is what's coming, Mayor. I want more past this. This is a foundation making you open up. Even to the newspaper, this is a good idea. When are they writing their stories now? In the evening after you're done in here. They're posting stuff on the, they can look at your contracts so that they can evaluate all different cities and compare while they're sitting in their office. There's so much to this. It needs to be pushed. And yeah, that's exactly why I'm here, and I've been waiting for a couple of years for this committee. Never dreamed anybody'd really appoint me to it. But thank you, Lord. I commend heavily. But this is important, folks. Minutes have been lost for now 30 years of loss. And it is valuable. It is important. It's the only communication with the public short of the newspaper. And think about, and something I wasn't thinking about before, the people that are homebound. Him. I upload to YouTube, send them to him so he can watch it. It's, think about how many people are homebound that don't have anything to do. But I know meeting video can be boring, but you can jump around. And there's a lot of people, trust me, sitting around that will view this stuff. And I know several families or several couples that are health issues, and they would love to have this stuff at home so they could watch it, be involved in the city. You'd get a lot more emails. Folks, this is all about communication, and we need it in the city badly. You're going to go to them for an increase in taxes. My Lord. You know, if this is at least something to show the people that you're making an effort to open the city up and get them involved. You know, and this $6,000, I'm sorry, that's just insanity. I'll show you cameras that can do this for $150. We've got the technology. It's not that difficult. You can buy a terabyte drive for $45. It's, you know, this technology, and sure, but what about CDs? Is there not programs that you can now take things and convert them up? You know, it happens every day. You know,
That's moving on to someone else for change. Dave?
Well, one clarification, the notes I used to take were for committee meetings because Kate Letter was exceptional in her ability to transmit information from council. And that was back before computers, and she did it all by hand. But I did it in committee meetings because, as you know, sometimes translation gets work once you walk out the door. So that was a lesson I learned from Lloyd Corbin. I already expressed to Dwayne before I got here that I agree that it's a legislative thing by ordinance because I'm being on this board 10 years ago. If we had said every meeting has to be recorded on beta tape or or something like that, you know, people would look at you cross-eyed and stuff like that. And I can remember when we were cautioned about, remember when satellite dishes first came out, everybody thought they were all 15 feet across and all that kind of stuff, and we were cautioned about, well, they're making them smaller and stuff like that. You know, I think rather than lock ourselves in, you know, there could be legislation where the information must be available on existing public domain, you know, whatever that domain might be. You know, it might be sent it to everybody's phone or something like that that signs up and stuff like that. But having been on this thing 10 years ago, most of the stuff that's technologically available now, I've never even heard of. You know, I didn't even have a cell phone 10 years ago, and I didn't know what a lot of that stuff was. I guess my thing is, I think it's a legislative thing that can be, you know, if it's done legislatively, it can be enforced without locking ourselves into a box of, you know, like kind of Chris said, you know, that we have to live with it for 10 years. That's just my opinion.
My opinion should be legislatively, and if this is such a huge issue, you know, I've been on council all them years, and if you had hundreds of people coming here sending emails demanding this to be done, council and the mayor would act. When I was on there, we got hardly anybody mentioned the thing except you guys. I don't think people are clamoring for it as much as you think. And we're a small city. We're not a big state government. We're not a city of Columbus where you've got tons of money and do all this stuff. You know, your Hanovers, your Hebrons, your Buckeye Lakes, they can't afford to do some of this stuff. And you say, oh, it don't cost much. There's a yearly expense to everything you do. No matter what you say, it costs money. And if you don't want your roads paved and you'd rather have everything put on TV, put it on TV. Well, don't worry about the roads. That's my whole point. And it's legislative. If people are just clamoring to have it done, they would act. I don't think there has been.
Ronnie?
I
Ronnie?
ask,
Just a minute. Ronnie, big comment?
Dorinda.
Brandon,
That's okay.
Hey, what?
I guess one of the things that I remember about you when you came to come here, one of the comments that you made is that you were going to do this. So for me, I think that we need to be doing it. I think with technology, the way the technology is changing in every company, it is fast paced. But I agree with what you're saying. 10 years from now, the web's still going to be there. I also agree with your comment about the camera issue. I'm not sure where you get $6,000 because you can record it on a laptop that you might have in the room and record it from there, download it on CD and put it on the web. The archiving part of it, I think maybe if you and then all administration, but if you set certain like 10 years or whatever, the cutoff there, it's not going to be on there. Put them someplace else on CDs or whatever. So I do agree with Dwayne. In fact, I mentioned part of the social media part of it because social media is growing so much. And then you spun off with what your comments was about recordings and things like that. So I'm in favor for what Dwayne's saying. And I think it is about communication and the lack of communication and how the community can receive that because there's homebound people, there's people that are interested that don't have the time, that are interested in politics. I guess I look from a learning standpoint. This is also good information for, and I'm going to put this out there, but for college professors or, you know, things like that.
Research.
Right, from a research standpoint. So I do think that what you're talking about, there's certain things that we can do to accommodate that. When we put in here the World Wide Web, if we can't put the www.heathohio.gov, I think that we can reword that in regards to the social or the technology at the time. Maybe we need to revisit that part of it so it does kind of accumulate to what the technology is at the time within the 10-year frame. But I honestly, I agree with what Dwayne's talking about just because of the technology and the communication that we have.
Make sure that everybody understands, I'm not an IT person, all right? We have a hired consultant that is an IT person. I don't think it's as easy as when you take a home video and share it with your parents. All right. I don't know why, okay, because I don't, like I said, I'm not an IT person. I think we have a very good consultant who is an IT person. I think the hardware issue is one of being able to get the video file small enough, memory-wise, to be able to have us put it out on the website, for us to be able to store it on our server. Having the hardware that can bring it into a file format that we can do that. It's not as simple as recording something and then putting it up on YouTube. YouTube probably has the process that makes it able to do that. We don't. So I just want to make sure you guys understand, it's not as simple as buying a camera, at least what I've been told, by our IT consultant. And our IT consultant has been working on trying to help us solve this voluntarily, trying to help us do this. I don't have any reason to doubt what he's telling me, although I may not be able to adequately explain it to all of you because of my lack of knowledge in that area. I just can tell you that I have no reason to question that he would have any other motives for telling me that other than to tell me the truth.
Robert, you have your hand up.
I was just gonna say, excuse me, in the past 2.5 years, there's only might be 3 people in this room that's been more meetings here than I have, city meetings. I've tried to come anytime I could, and there was once back in 2010, I missed about a month and I had a heart valve replaced, and then I've missed since March 6th, since my accident. And I can tell you, I would love to have been able to keep up with what's going on here, because I certainly cannot look at the minutes if they do go up on our site. If they do, I can't read them and tell what's going on here. Because an example would be, of a history of the minutes would be, Ronnie Kidd spoke about cameras. You know, that's was I for them, was I against them? What?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I would like to know what's going on. This Heath, City of Providence, that's our motto. We're not. We're not. We need to be. And we're small. Itasca does it. You know, there's all these little towns around here that do it. What we can do. You know, what are they doing? How are they doing? I agree with her. We need $6,000. I don't think we need any roads unpaved to have a simple little thing like sitting up on a tripod up there. It's good. I'm sure I'll probably go home tonight and watch how silly I look on camera.
You didn't make any funny faces.
That's all I wanted to say.
Well, I'm about what I think with everybody else. You know, when I was on the council, I'm very much making communications, and I agree with what we're trying to do here, but I'm really, really nervous about us getting bit from what we're kicking there. If you're doing something. I personally got a lot of confidence in the mayor, and I think we have made enough points to let the mayor and hopefully the council know how strong we feel about this. I'm just scared, personally, I'm just scared of making it part of the charter. I think it has to go forward and we need to do something with it. It just makes me nervous. We don't put something in the charter that we can't live with, and that's what I'm concerned with. We try to come up with some different wording. Should we just go put 3 little words in there that's gonna make it? I doubt it. I don't know how we can put language in there that's gonna keep us from getting bitten about later on.
How can it possibly fight? The only people that the charter puts out any rules for is council and the mayor. There is, what enforcement is there in anything written into this document? There, you know, even if the minutes, if we put it in there and the minutes don't go up, what retaliatory or penalty could there possibly be? Is there?
There would be
Tell
a
me.
penalty, the court would,
But
if the suit was filed, the court would order the city to do it. And then if the city didn't do it, then the city be in contempt of court.
I mean, but you'd have to sue them.
But why would you?
Well, I guess you're kind of arguing, if you wanted to look at it through another prism, Dwayne, you're kind of arguing against your point. If there's no enforcement mechanism to this, then why have it in? Again, if you were to look at it through another prism,
I
you
understand what
could
you're
look
saying,
at it that way.
but you know, and I go back to the charter again, being a public document. And in fact, why do they write in the charter that it's supposed to be people from the public, not in city government? It is a public document. They're trying to get people to give input, change things. You know, it goes back to the definition of insanity. If you do the same thing time after time, you get the same results. You know, it's a push on the city. There's a lot more the city could be doing to open up, but this is truly where it belongs because it's the people's vote. It's not for council. And we really, with open records, you don't want council or the mayor to be able to change it without a public vote.
I just can't feel comfortable. Any other comments?
I want to ask the law director.
Any more comments?
Well, I was just curious, I know this is all really about audio and video, and I'm not sure what the difference is between us and the surrounding communities, or if there's maybe send the IT guy over and just ask them, what are they doing that we aren't? But,
North's no longer doing their video.
really?
Because of the
No,
cost.
I checked with.
No,
I
it's on
checked with-
TV.
I
No.
talked, no, they're not anymore.
That's been a while if
I
they
talked
haven't
with Mark
been
Guthrie, and, they had an outside corporation was funding it, and they cut off the funding, so they have no money, so they haven't been doing it for quite a while.
Yeah.
The,
I don't know what they're doing.
What are
They used to show it on the cable
Huh?
network, remember?
They put them on the
They haven't been doing that for a while.
We restricted, I just called him about the televising, and they're not doing it.
and honestly, I don't know if there's personally, I've given all the conversation and the emails that we saw. I came to the feeling that maybe the charter is not the right place for it. As long as, you know, if it's a matter of making things a little more public and a little more open, what worthy would be the other avenue besides that? I don't know if there's something that, whether it's an ordinance, but you can't push an ordinance. That's sort of a voluntary thing for council.
Your elected officials decide what to do.
Yeah. See, I think it's a duty of the elected officials, and the consequences are, if it's not addressed by the elected officials, then we elect new officials. You know, if there's a preponderance of, of feeling that this is something that's that important, then it's their job to see that it's implemented. And if they don't do our wishes, then the consequences are they don't get reelected. And that's why I think it's their job to address this problem. I have a hard time saying it's my job to tell them how to address this problem because I don't know.
But you want the problem addressed though.
Huh?
You want the problem addressed though, but you don't.
If it's like I said, if there's a preponderance of feeling that it's a problem, then we ought to pressure the elected officials. And then you ask what the consequences, where the consequences are. If they don't, then there's enough people that say, well, he had a chance and he didn't do it, so we're going to elect somebody else to do it.
Chris, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I guess my question for
Sorry
the
to
law
interrupt
director.
you, Chris, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's right. Dwayne had said, something about suing the city. He's not going to sue the city. Couldn't somebody, if there was something in there, how you were saying that there weren't any teeth or anything like that, couldn't somebody go to the state if a city, you could sue the city with no money out of your pocket, couldn't you? I mean, you wouldn't have to get a lawyer. I guess I'm
Lawyers.
kind of going against what Dwayne's saying about I'm not going to sue the city, because of the expense. If the city's in breach of this, wouldn't there be a way that you could go to the state or something where it wouldn't cost you any money out of your pocket? I would think.
Not that I know of, unless there's some mechanism for the Attorney General to.
I guess that's what I meant.
But I've never heard of the
Okay,
Attorney
I was
General
just
doing
curious.
something like that, so I just don't know. I don't know where, that'd be a new question that I haven't seen addressed in.
That's all right. Now I'm not trying to give you ideas. I was just wondering.
No, there is no, I've never found any places offering that. The sunshine laws have no real teeth, other than you suing your city. It's all about home rule. And that's back, to the charter again. There's nothing legally stopping us from putting it in there. But anyway, I learned a new word today, and munifeasance. Munifeasance. Transparency exists on government websites largely at the munificence of officials. Munificence of city officials.
So are you implying our city officials aren't munificent?
Magnificent.
They are not. And that's part of the deal. It's at their generosity that this is being supplied thus far. So I want,
Like they did, the public feels nothing to do, they vote them out. If people
there
that
has been a
vote them
couple
out.
elections. We're getting the same thing. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, me out of there.
Three presidents.
Well,
Uh,
I think we're to a point where we can probably vote on whether we want to bring this issue forward or to kill it. I personally want to thank everyone for their hard work in doing it. I was very supportive of it going to charter to start off with, but I'm thinking a little bit away from it at this point because of technology and enforcement and all that's garbage in there. And I've got faith in the mayor. The mayor knows I'll keep after his tail and keep after council so he gets it done. So I'm ready to call on a vote. The vote is to whether we want to. The vote is to kill this action.
So we go vote.
The vote is to kill this action.
You just make a vote to approve it, and then we say yes or no.
Okay.
may I
Well,
ask you?
we don't have any wording or stuff for it. We don't have any wording to
Why don't we
approve.
say just, the vote is to put it in the charter, yes or no?
I have one question.
Yeah, quick.
Well, we're talking about actually two. I mean, one or two are my ideas, one was her ideas, and the one is about the clerk. And the ordinances. I mean, she's already got to publish it in the paper. She's already got to have a copy here.
We could break it into two. So one you're talking about is how the clerk does it. What section was that?
307, it looks like, maybe.
307?
No, 416.
416. Yeah.
That's the ordinance, is that what you're talking about, Dwayne, the ordinances?
The ordinances being published on the website before they're voted
Okay,
on.
let's pull forward,
That's 416.
let's pull forward 16 out separately. And for right now, we'll just strictly vote on whether we want to put anything in the charter pertaining to the videoing and archiving and all that kind of.
Audio, video files.
Yes, in the web, on the web. And everything except 416 is what the understanding is. I want everybody to understand that. What we're voting for is everything but 416, okay? Everybody understand that? Okay. All in favor of adding this to the charter, say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Against.
2, 3. Okay. You get 2, 5.
Now we're gonna turn around and try to backdoor it through the clerk. Put it on the web.
It's
So much next
no,
one's
it's
gonna be.
It's ordinance.
416 is ordinances and
Before
resolutions,
they're
Ron.
voted on.
Is that on the web?
There's no other place to view them. Except coming to City Hall and getting a copy.
Let's see, we've got.
Again, that could be administrative, or just something administrative, it doesn't have to be in the charter.
But it already tells her
We can-
to do everything else.
Can I, are you looking for those?
So we'll do
Oh,
it.
this is an email, sorry.
I know we got it here somewhere.
416.
Oh, yeah.
Second page agenda.
Oh, I think
Second
it's on
page
the charter.
agenda.
Yeah, so right, yeah.
Tonight's agenda, is on page, mine's page 2 of the agenda.
There it is. I got it. This one here.
Yeah, 4.16.
So we'll give everybody a couple minutes to take a look at that, we'll start discussion on that.
This thing, 416.
It's not this.
Public
Yeah, that's it.
title and date.
Why is yours laid out?
Because I just printed mine.
Oh, okay.
Alright.
All
I just have to have it.
Okay.
Mayor, you have it?
Yeah, 416.
Go ahead.
Question, in the last discussion, we were a little concerned the way this talks about WWW, Heath, Ohio, et cetera. I sort of picked up on something Coach mentioned about phrasing it more generically, if we were to go forward with this, on something about public domain.
Publish it on the existing public
Yeah,
domain,
existing
whatever that
public
might be 10 years from now or 8 years from now.
And,
Because a lot of them are like M dot whatever now, aren't they? The
yeah,
www.
they're changing the front end of the addresses are starting
Yeah,
to change
a lot of them are
already.
M dot whatever.
Yeah.
And it's not even www in front of the address anymore, so necessarily.
And my suggestion would be if, we consider this, it would be available on the existing public domain.
Which essentially.
If
Which is
available.
the, yeah, which is the web,
Yeah, which
And
today would be.
Today
the
is
the
the
web.
web, yeah.
And it may
If
eventually
available.
get to the point where it's on just cell phones, I
Right.
don't know.
Well, like I said, it might be one of these days that you just contact the city hall and they send it to you on your cell phone or something like that.
We're also talking about something that the council could do by ordinance too. If the mayor and the council feel they need to, if they want to have her do it, let them do it.
You know what though, Ron? When you look at just 416, let me just make this point. When you look at 416,
Which one, the charter one?
section 416.
Of the charter, not the one that's proposed.
Well, yeah, I mean, the proposed language is what's different here. What's in black is the existing
A little
language.
bit added.
Just the
It's
blue
just
and
an insert.
You know, it says in 416 right now that it has to be published in a newspaper. So this particular section of the charter names a medium which is required for use. Now, anybody that has seen what's happened in the newspaper industry over the past, half dozen years or so, one could certainly question, are newspapers, as we know it, going to exist 10 years from now? I mean, they might, and they might not.
But that's why the charter updates. That's why we're here, really.
But this particular section does mention a medium by which this is supposed to be communicated through. Whereas the other ones, that would have been something new.
Will there be other areas we'd have to change, because things have to be published, the planning commission has to publish certain things. I believe, zoning stuff has to be published or notified, is that true? I can't remember now if that's in charter or if that's,
Planning has also sent out letters, so.
yeah.
Well, if it's of a particular issue that neighbors around need to be notified of, but that's not in every action that the planning commission takes. For instance, we just did a lot split tonight. You don't have to notify the neighbors on a lot split. So not every action that the planning commission would review is required to have letters go out to, a radius of property owners.
See, the old verbiage is kind of doing what we didn't want to do with the media, or with the taping and stuff like that.
So there's really no real big change in this one, right? Except for the medium, only one proposed change on this one.
It would be adding a second medium. In my opinion, I have the same concern of identifying www.heathohio.gov, but I think Dave's comments would address that concern.
Now, in this case, on 416, about the proposed ordinances and resolutions being a little easier to get to, I kind of like that idea. more so than the end around on the, I mean, looking at it after the fact on the videos. But I'm a little
We try
worried
to do
about
that.
locking ourselves into.
We try to do that today, Mike, in making an effort, and we're not always successful week in and week out, but we make an effort to try to post, at least on Friday, the agenda for that coming Monday's council committee meetings. We also make an effort to try to post on the website for, like, as the month of April is closing, we'll try to post the dates for the meetings in May, you know, so that if so it would be like doing that. You would basically create a PDF file and post it on the website. It would probably be the easiest way to do it today.
Is Lynn posting anything else on there then?
I doubt it. Jenna puts the agendas on the website. Jenna puts the dates of the council meetings on the website, not Lynn.
And PDF files are really so small, they're not a space consumer. To really get concerned about today's.
And just so that y'all understand, if you're not familiar with the workings, some of you are, I know some of you aren't. The clerk of council does not report to me. The clerk of council reports to city council. I have zero authorization over what the clerk of council does or how the clerk of council does it. I do have that over my assistant, so that's why I asked Jenna to get the agendas on there when we get them from the department heads, and also the schedule for the meetings. And I could make a request of Jenna to have ordinances after the first reading put up on the city's website the same way. Like I said, it's a PDF file, and put it on, so that people could review it
But
before.
this is a different issue. I think the reference to the newspaper, you've got a point. So this seems to be as a logic change to make in the charter.
I mean, this section already references a medium.
Yeah. So just
You would be referencing a second medium.
No, we have to check every other spot in the charter too. That would reference.
Not if you didn't want to change it.
Well,
If you
worried
all
about
the
newspapers, then you're.
if all you wanted to do was require that ordinances and resolutions be, as Dave said, somehow made available on a public domain, then that's what it would be limited to. You wouldn't have to open it up to everything else.
One thing we talked about, Mayor, I think it was maybe the last meeting or meeting before, was rather than require the clerk to do it, since the clerk is only one person and has no employees, is require the mayor to cause it to be done. Because you run, you have people who are working for you. The clerk doesn't have it. The clerk doesn't know how to do it. I don't know how she's going to do it.
The problem is now you're stepping into something else, in my opinion. Now you're stepping into something else, which is what I referenced before, which is that the mayor has zero authority over the clerk of court, or clerk of council. The clerk of council works at the behest of council.
Yeah, but that's
So
my
to
point.
authorize, in my opinion, to authorize the mayor to be able to say to the clerk of courts, that would be something new.
Well, no, you wouldn't have the clerk do it. You would just cause it to be done because you have access to all that. And you have employees.
Oh, have somebody else other than the clerk do it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I understand. I understand.
Doesn't do. She doesn't answer it,
Does that
basically, anyway.
Does that sound feasible? If we do that, we probably have to.
We have to go in Article 5 though.
We have to rewrite this whole section though.
I mean, we go in
Like,
Section 5.
taking out the reference to the clerk and put it out, we still say, 416 is not under the section of the clerk of council, it's a separate section. So we'd have to rewrite that whole section.
But you're making an assumption, Jim, that the clerk of council is always going to be who the clerk of council is. And at some point in time, the person who is the clerk of council will be different. Perhaps that person's capabilities will be different. I mean, I don't know. To me,
The only point I was bringing out is if we want to do it that way, we got to completely change this and get the clerk out of it. If we're saying it's going to
I
be.
don't think so. I think you can still make the clerk responsible for it. If the clerk can't do it, the clerk asks for help. And it happens.
Ways for this,
But
but you're always taking.
Nobody works for the court, you know, it cuts both ways.
I mean, if that's part of it, then you just, to me, that seems simple that you could get that done.
I don't have, I don't have the authority to do that.
No, I know you don't, but it seems like that should be pretty simple.
Yes, it does.
If you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it.
Okay, so it's not even a local
Yeah.
Yes, the Heath.
Well, wouldn't it valid?
The Heath News is what the city council
She just-
has
she can say,
identified as being
Just not, you'll never do
a
it.
newspaper.
Well, if we do change it to media, it wouldn't make any difference. It's just newspapers are media. So it wouldn't make any difference. Right?
Say that again, Peter? I'm sorry.
If we just change the word to media,
You know, media, just generic, could be anything.
it could be anything.
Or everything.
Or everything, right. So is that the simplest?
Or everything.
Well, is that the simplest way to do that, just to make that?
I think Dave hit the nail right on the head. If you were inclined to have this information also made available in a public domain, I think Dave's absolutely right. That's the way you'd want to word it. Because today, www. That's the most effective way of doing it. Tomorrow, who knows? But what Dave is saying would give you that ability. And since, like I said, in the case of this particular section, since it already identifies one medium that you would use, you're just identifying a second medium.
Right.
If you say media, there's lots of media that then would be open. And I don't know that you'd want to do that, Jim.
Yeah, you have to publish it.
On the radio?
Thanks.
They'd have to- Yeah.
Well, I misspoke. I meant a simple word that we put in there to just get rid of that. So since she could still put it in the newspaper, you know, we're not
And we could
forcing
put it on the public domain.
Right.
Yeah, but words do matter, and that's why I just wanted to. Media is a dangerous word.
Is
So
newspaper
you-
considered public domain?
Remember how, Dave, you said one time he means she, we assume he to mean she, but the newspaper mean some kind of advertisement?
Possibly, it just depends on what the fact finder and the.
Okay, just so I said, remember when you brought up about the he versus the she thing? And
Yeah.
He said it's just known to be interchangeable nowadays. Does newspaper mean interchangeable for media today?
Would the word newspaper need to be in there?
And then we have to go through everything and change it.
I think that by law, you may have to publish in a newspaper.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Because we always put things in the Heath News all the time.
I think the wording on this follows another law.
State law, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think just
Good
maybe
point.
leave the newspaper and then put, and then just, personally, I kind of like the idea of putting in this section, because this is specific to ordinances and resolutions.
Right.
So, and putting something in there about the public domain, whatever that may be. Whatever.
Newspaper and existing public domain.
Existing.
The city's public domain, how do you pronounce it?
I'd say the existing public domain, because like I said, one of these days it may be all on your phone. You know, you look on your phone and somebody said, well, I didn't know that.
And if you limit to the cities, Ron, the city's public domain, now you're pointing right to the
Yeah,
city's
okay.
website, so.
Yeah. Or whatever it is at the time that they're choosing as
Yeah,
their.
Just remember, don't force her to do anything. It's right below it says a failure to publish does not mean it's going to take anything away from anything.
On the
So
part
she
of the
would take
newspaper,
it
its
away.
officers, employees, or agents. I mean, that sentence, Ron, only refers to if the newspaper screws up or for some reason doesn't publicize it, it's not the city's fault.
Okay.
Publish, on the part of the newspaper, its officers, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's, yeah, she can pinpoint.
So, do we have some?
Would council need to specify which public domain, because I'm just thinking that from that standpoint, are they gonna have to need to specify?
Since council specifies the newspaper, you could do it that way, that council's responsible for making sure it's keeping up with the times.
Like, if
Right now, the
there was
concept, which is the Heath News, right?
That's correct.
an inspection on like resource sharing document, or I'm just thinking from that's chosen by council.
Yeah, you could word it something like that. You could blend kind of like what Dave's talking about and what you're talking about. Couldn't you, David?
Yeah, you could just say that.
And have council be responsible for who's
Inspection on the, whatever public domain is determined by council to be suitable or something like that.
Current public domain selected by council, something like that.
When you talk about public domain, and that's where it would be nice to have a lot of talk to figure out what public domain is, but I'm not, I mean, it's more of a resource or a media, and that's where I'm trying to think maybe from the wording perspective, we may, and you might.
I'm a phys ed teacher, I have no idea what public domain is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Public domain to me
Yeah, that'd be good.
is a server issue with, from a technological standpoint. But, yeah,
Sure is.
and I don't know, maybe you could put something to the effect that the social media chosen by council or something to that effect. 'Cause to me, I think social domain is, like I said, it's something to do with the server part of it, or resource sharing, or something to that effect. And that's where
Public domain designated by council?
Yeah.
What about that?
some kind of wording like that. And then
Yeah.
just as with the newspaper,
And
if the
yes,
Heath
maybe.
News were to go out of business and no longer publish, council would have to pick another newspaper.
Designated.
If for some reason, the city can't maintain. Well, that doesn't help much, does it? If for some reason in the future the city's utilizing something other than www. Then council would have the flexibility of being able to change.
If we're confused, remember, we're taking this to the voters, so if we're confused, don't take it to the voters.
Well, but if this is an issue, if we could just, they defeat it, it's not, no harm done, we could work to educate them, so they know what it is, majority should know.
So how does that happen though? I mean,
There is a
how are they,
public campaign put on.
okay, I was just wondering how that's
Not
through
really.
public
In
domain?
the past, they haven't.
It could be.
We've already agreed.
Oh, you
It
could,
could be.
but they haven't.
We should try to word it so people would know what
Yeah.
we're trying to say.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's-
if we don't know what public domain is, we shouldn't be using that term. We
Or
should
social
understand the
media
word we're using.
avenue, or something to that effect, where that, because I think that's what we're all trying to get at, is a specific special social media
Yeah.
chosen by
Is everybody pretty much in agreement to make this a charter issue? The only problem we have is just the wording,
To refine the wording.
to refine the wording.
Yeah.
I'd really like to clear this thing up without having another meeting.
I'll make a motion on that.
Not have another meeting? And that's what I was hoping we could,
But Jim, I mean, honestly, the Charter Review Commission will have to vote on the wording that they expect to see on the ballot.
David might post speaking on it, so not big as that here.
I said we wait till newspapers go out of business.
Being public, being in the public or something, yeah.
I'm just thinking from to me, there is a word out there, and it's social media, but then
Quick,
there's
can I
another
do what?
social
That's the
media
wording
that
for us.
play all
What do you think would be a good
Internet.
substitute for public media domain?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what, like you, I don't know what those words mean really. I know what I mean by it, but I don't know.
The means by which,
Would you give
our
us a definition?
public communication.
The
Cities-
state,
cities
if the public
designated
domain
media?
means the state
Well, I said
of
public
belonging
domain
or
as
being
designated
available
by
to the
council.
public as a whole, not subject to
I don't
copyright.
know, I just,
So,
if the words don't have any meaning in law or any
Guys,
commonly agreed upon definition, then.
read that again, because really, that's
public domain is
flexible.
the.
Did you lose it?
It disappeared. Yeah, let me-
Oh,
Technology.
Was it on that same?
Yeah, it was.
another hour.
I don't know where
Sorry.
you rolled to or.
The state of belonging or being available to the public as a whole, not set, and then number 2 is not subject to copyright.
What's that mean?
That means that, Mark Twain's books, if the copyrights have expired, you can copy them without violating a copyright law. That's all public domain is. Now, I'm aware of that definition, but I thought maybe there was some technological definition.
But you know, that would give council, now and in the future, the flexibility. You're narrowing it to newspaper. That would give council the flexibility of choosing another means of reaching the public domain.
But the ordinances are already in the public domain because nobody has a copyright to them. That's all that means.
Oh.
Social
Well,
media,
the first definition.
I
we
would
can
say
be
social
back.
media means that include a web-based and mobile technologies used to turn communications into interactive.
Into what?
Interactive.
It sounds like there must be another word after interactive there.
We can argue all night on this. I still think your council can direct the clerk to tell her where they want to put it on. It's as simple as that. Administrative.
Apparently, though, I think the concern is maybe that's not happening. Is that what I'm hearing?
When it comes to council clerk, nothing has changed, happened, or otherwise.
It says technologies used to turn communication into interactive dialogue between organizations, community, and individuals. That's what social media.
That's back, it's
That's
back and forth.
Yeah.
Smoke signals.
There's a word out there. There's a phrase out there, and it's not coming to me right now. But it's out there.
I'll just say the internet and hope it's always called the internet.
Could you say electronic media?
Al Gore invented it.
Could you say electronic media? That's vague, yet.
Is a cell phone electronic media? I don't think so.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you put something on the website, I'd go on the city's website on my phone.
Trouble is, I just don't think anybody knows what words to use that would.
By selecting newspaper, that's the
common
selection of a
definition.
print media. If you use the words electronic media, again, it gives council the flexibility with as technology changes. I don't think we'll probably advance to a print media after this. So as technology changes, council could identify then whatever that best thing may be.
Yeah, I think those words should be in there as designated by council.
Yeah.
Well, what could it be as vague as saying in the second line here, for 2 consecutive weeks in print and electronic media determined by council?
Yeah.
That could work. And then make sure they're under failure to publish. You got to put in there about media too. You can't just
Well,
say
yeah,
newspaper.
yeah, because if the city's website
Exactly.
went down and
Right.
and
So you have to put that in there too, so that you can't punish somebody or declare the ordinance invalid. In which case, you're back into where she can damn well don't have to do nothing. If there's no penalty, then she can't force her to do it. He or her.
Yeah,
So
but
what are we arguing about?
Ron, if there's no penalty, then what's the point of the whole document?
That's it. Writing it down, maybe
The
it'll-
consequences could be, you could say, she must authorize publication on a later date instead of May.
Yeah, there's no date, is there?
Well, if the website goes down or the
David,
newspaper
let me
goes.
ask you a question. Let's say, because what Dave's talking about, let's say for some reason, we go and for some reason the Heath News is not able to publish the ordinance, okay, for 2 consecutive weeks. Would that mean that council could not vote on that ordinance until it has been published for 2 consecutive weeks?
It's that failure to publish thing comes in.
Sure.
Well, the way it says,
Oh,
the failure
yeah.
to publish,
Google or what?
Yeah, you're right. Same thing would apply.
That mitigates.
If it's not the city's fault, then it's the city's not at fault and can move forward. It would be
That's
valid.
Mike's thing where he said under that says weeks in the newspaper and media determined by council to be.
And electronic
Yeah.
media.
Well, I'd say just media. That way it can include everything.
pretty loose.
Well, what if,
Or 2 consecutive weeks in print and electronic media, if you want to get that, if you want to specify.
or and/or
If
electronic media?
if you want it on the electronic media, you might want to specify it.
Would you say and/or in case newspaper is on, so then you got or?
New York Times almost went out of business.
They're on the road still.
Yeah.
It ain't over yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, something else we haven't considered is December 21st, the world might end.
That's right. Don't worry about it.
It will for somebody.
Put that in the charter.
Do we have some good suggestions and stuff on some wording that we could set a meeting for the 10th of May? We didn't want another meeting, but I don't think we're not gonna be able to solve this issue tonight, I don't think.
Because the commission has to vote on it.
Right.
We can't just walk out the door and say, somebody come up with the wording.
That's what I was
So moved and leave it to me to write it up.
In my, to try to, accommodate Chris's desire, in my opinion, if I were to word this, so take it what it's worth, in my opinion, I would word it as such. To be published once a week for 2 consecutive weeks in a newspaper and an electronic medium. One electronic medium.
And then you have to
That's
add,
the way I would word it.
and then add it on that line before about the failure to publish, you gotta put part of the newspaper and electronic medium down there too.
Yes.
There's always
And
gonna
then-
be a loophole, Dwayne.
Well, what if you do the website and your mobile? I mean, you're not doing, if you come up with,
That goes back to social media, because it's cutting both things together, so.
Mhm.
So you could.
I like the mayor's idea.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
I'll put it in both places.
So we got the wording down?
Well,
We're trying to avoid May 10th.
now, let me,
I don't care what it says.
let me back up here. This failure to publish statement here, this talks about the newspapers, its officers, employees, and agents. I don't think we can find the officers and the agents of the electronic media. I don't think we'll know who that is. So,
That's all right.
if it's their fault.
Well, the agent would be the city, who's doing it for the city, wouldn't it be? Like the IT guy? Would that,
But is he a
that what that
city
means?
employee? He's not a city
Contract.
employee.
But he's still contracted, might be our agent.
Because I'm thinking, the reason I'm worried about it, if it's a city employee, you may just not even be able to vote.
Why would you even have that in there about the officers, employees, and agents? Just stop it after the newspapers and media. Who cares? The newspaper, does it include all those people,
I would not vote.
right? So just take all that out, and you don't have to worry about it.
Well,
I think it was probably trying to be all-encompassing at the time.
let's say the editor was mad, wanted to publish it.
Okay, well, okay,
Trying to stop it, it would still be the
if you had a strike,
Yeah.
okay, that's not the newspaper's fault. If maybe they're employees who are striking, that's the cause of them not being able to publish. You know, I'm just saying, in 1960 thinking,
Right.
that may have been the reason why. Was to
Yeah, they
try
should
to-
have said the newspaper publisher is what they should have said. That's what they were trying
We
to
could
say.
probably take it out, Jim, like
So
I
I
said.
think we can probably take it all out now, just,
Because if you keep reading, it says it shall not cause it to be invalid, and that's all we wanted to do.
right.
Because the newspaper isn't a
Whatever
thing.
caused
It's
it not to be published.
Yeah.
well, it's a physical thing, a newspaper is. They probably meant newspaper publisher.
You got the writing now, you know how we're gonna do it, right?
That was good.
Well, I could come up with an idea for you for the next meeting, but,
We might not have a meeting. If we can get those words, if everybody's in comfort with
It's
the
just
words, that's
3 words.
those 3 words in there, then we can go with it.
well, you change it to newspaper publisher, but I still don't know what, getting back to Mike's point, I don't know how, who would be at fault if it doesn't get published electronically? If we figure that out, then
Who
we
cares?
put that in.
Yeah,
Who cares? We're just not liable.
We're saying the whole general thing, the newspaper's not
Okay.
liable, and the electronic medium's not liable.
Okay,
We're
just say a
covered.
failure to publish, will not invalidate it then, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
Who cares whose fault it is? It just doesn't
doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter.
Just leave sending a failure to publish, omission, delay, or error in said publication on part of the newspaper and electronic medium shall not cause such ordinance to be declared valid. Is that good enough?
Or you just say a failure to publish,
Omit or
shall,
delay.
no, you can skip all that.
Oh,
Shall not cause such ordinance or.
oh, yeah.
Cut out a whole bunch.
Yeah, because if the website host goes down,
Mhm.
that's not the city's fault.
Right.
Just as if the newspaper doesn't publish, that's not the city's fault.
Okay, let me be the devil advocate one more time. What if the concept of failure to publish is the fault of the clerk? Or the fault of the one in city that was appointed to do that?
Shall not cause same thing.
Still,
One part
everything still goes ahead, and everybody's okay with it. I don't have a problem with it, I just wanted to make sure.
Or probably having a real life that they get on her case about it, not doing it.
Yeah, I hope it should.
Yeah,
I mean, in my world it would. That's
Well,
what
if it's a charter thing, you'd have to.
Okay, so the other question is that, we're comfortable with those words, and we vote on it, and we will expect him to go through it, and we will have to look at it again.
I like what Dave said, but just end it at failure to publish, period, take all that
Skip
out.
all that.
And take all that out. And then up at the top, we're talking about print and electronic medium. Is that what you said?
Medium.
At the
Yep.
top.
You said, you skip, you knocking off omission, delay, error, and all that stuff, and it says on, but you leave on the part of the newspaper and electronic medium shall not cause such ordinance, is that what you're leaving in?
Well, I was just, I was talking about two sentences,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry. A failure, at the failure to publish, a failure to publish,
On the-
everything goes away, and then it goes on and says, shall not cause such ordinance. A failure to publish shall not cause such
Don't you,
ordinance.
don't you want to say on the part of the newspaper and electronic medium?
I think we need to keep that on there.
Do you?
Well, the medium can't fail to publish.
Yes, it can. If our web host, if the entity that hosts our website goes down, then our website is no longer on the internet.
Well, then that's
So
what,
it would not be published, Howard.
that's what we should say then, instead of just saying the medium, the electronic medium. Because, you know, those words just don't mean anything. But if you'd say that if the web host, but then we're back to technology again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the World Wide Web isn't going to fail to publish it. It's going to be somebody or something that caused that not to happen.
I think we're making this too difficult.
Yeah, it should just say a failure to publish in the newspaper or the electronic medium shall not cause such ordinance to be invalid. Does that make sense?
What?
If you are to publish, either.
Yeah, but that doesn't change, that doesn't add anything to just say failure to publish. And it will wind up meaning the same thing. If you want to say if it's the newspaper's fault,
Or you say the failure to publish to anything that's caused a failure of anything to be published.
yeah, I'm only asking for clarification. So right now it says if it's the newspaper's fault, it doesn't affect the validity of the ordinance.
What this sentence is trying to get at is that if the clerk of council has made the attempt to have it published in the newspaper and the newspaper doesn't publish it, it's not the city's fault. So maybe what you say is a failure to publish, omission, delay, or error in said publication on the part of the newspaper and or electronic medium. And then, you know, shall not cause such ordinance or resolution to be declared invalid. You know, if, and here's where I don't know how you want to word it, but if all attempts were made by the clerk of courts to publish them there. Because that's what that sentence is doing.
Yeah.
If the clerk of courts did what the clerk of courts, I keep saying that, clerk of council, if they did what they were supposed to do, and it's the newspaper's fault, then you don't blame the city for that.
Can't you just say failure to publish
Shall not
by
cause.
no fault of
Through
the
no
clerk,
fault of the clerk of
or
council.
something as simple as that, and not put any of that other stuff after? I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, failure to publish through no fault.
Yeah, it raises the fact issue whose fault it is. The way it's worded here, it's if the paper fails to do it, then it doesn't have any effect.
If you just put a failure to publish, that covers everything though, doesn't it?
Yeah, but then you might as well just say there's no need to publish.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, and Chris is right, you'd have to say through no fault of the clerk in order for the intent to be the same.
But
would be no fault of the clerk or no fault of the city.
Well, this is direct.
Well, you're directing the clerk of council to do it.
That's true.
Which brings me back to the point I started on before. If the clerk doesn't know how to do it, and she doesn't have any authority over anybody else to see that it's done,
I think the
what
clerk could be trained
happens?
to do it.
Pardon?
I think the clerk could be trained to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's in job description, I mean, you have water workers and wastewater, I mean, they get certification stuff. Anybody could learn to do that. I mean, I think to plan on 10 years because of one person, because they're not capable of doing something right now, I'd say you could learn to do it.
She could learn to do it.
I don't know how, maybe so, I don't know how hard that is. I know I'm not a webmaster and I wouldn't.
Oh, I'm not either, but
The
if
charter
your job
also
depends
says
on
that,
you doing
the
it.
charter also says that city council can have others work for them as well. If the city council were to deem that the clerk of council is incapable of doing this and wanted to have somebody else do it, council could do that.
Yeah.
And council could even hire somebody else to do it if they wanted to.
Well,
So council has the flexibility to address what you're talking about. If for some reason, if the clerk can't do it,
Get a third grader to do it. The clerk's responsibility was to get to that person to do it.
Well, then maybe we should say the council should cause it to be done rather than the clerk.
That's fine with me.
Where we at now? Where we at now?
First, at the opening sentence where it says the clerk of council shall cause.
I mean, there are times, I'm sure, where the clerk of council has maybe gone on vacation, and somebody else has, for that, somebody else has covered for the clerk to meet the requirement here. And I don't think we need to make it harder than what it, I'm sorry.
Let's start from the top. Well, so after where it says, the first two lines says newspaper, we're gonna put in and electronic medium, right? Does everybody read on that?
Yep. Or print and electronic medium, which was your suggestion? Newspaper?
You can leave the word newspaper in there. I mean, I don't know of any other print medium that there is.
And electronic determined by council to be in circulation of some
The
such.
other one, what I was trying to think of is multimedia. And that's what the multimedia is, integration of animation, audio, graphics, text, and full motion video through computer hardware and software for education, training, entertainment, and training. That's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah.
Because that's
Yep.
inclusive of everything.
Everything.
So,
What includes everything? I couldn't hear.
multimedia,
Multimedia.
So instead of medium, you put multimedia.
I think you'd be okay with still with electronic medium.
it's, that might open you up to more of what you need.
And then at the lower sentence, Ron, I didn't cut you off.
Well, go ahead, I'm just, go ahead, let's get going, let's
I
get
was
going.
gonna
with
say,
that.
at that lower sentence, I understand, following, piggybacking on Chris. Failure to publish through no fault of the clerk, this, the clerk of council, ... Shall not cause such ordinance or resolution to be declared invalid, and so on.
Yeah.
And that way it just opens it up to whatever the medium is, it would be their fault, is that
Yeah.
true?
Well,
No fault of the
in law, that kind of vagary invites litigation because then the question is, was it the clerk's fault or not? There's no objective standard to determine the fault like that.
no fault of the clerk.
You could say, well, the clerk went on vacation. Well, maybe it's her fault. She shouldn't have gone on vacation. There are a lot of ways. You have to, when you draft legal documents, you have to think of the most hostile reading you can imagine.
Yeah.
And that's what you're going to be confronted with somewhere
Well,
along
should you
the
just
line.
put then a failure to publish shall not cause it, just leave it at that?
Well, then we're back to.
Then you're back to why
required
bother
publication.
publishing it at all if you're saying that if you don't
Well,
publish
but
it,
your
it's
intent is
nobody's
to
fault.
your intent is to tell her to do it. But
But if she doesn't do it, that's fine.
But that's the way it is now, so we didn't change anything, but at least you're telling someone to do it, and someone will make her do it. In the real world, someone will make her do it. Your charter says that, don't you think the council would enforce her to do that? Wouldn't you believe that would happen? I do. No, because right now there's.
Well, then we're back to it's the council's responsibility instead of the clerk's. if we're relying on council.
council's your
required
boss,
to do it.
Well, what David had mentioned earlier, at the very first, the opening of that paragraph, instead of saying all this is the clerk of council's responsibility, just make it say the council shall cause. And then let the council decide who they're gonna
We
appoint.
should just say the city shall.
Ron,
Yeah, the council only has one employee, and that's the clerk.
that's
For
true.
right now, but they could have more, like the mayor says.
Yeah.
So maybe that would be a good idea, or don't make it the council shall. That sounds,
I don't think you want the mayor being responsible.
It's council.
so if you say the council, the council
I-
shall
I-
cause.
Yeah,
I'm just
And the
kidding.
council would cause it by what? By directing the clerk to do it, or some other employee?
Yeah, that's the way it would work, yeah. And if they don't have an employee, they have to hire somebody to do it,
That's right.
which can be expensive, but if that's what you.
Well, it has to
want.
be done anyway, regardless how you do it.
Well, that's the question, are we gonna require it to be done or not?
Yes. Well, even if we just kept with the newspaper, it would still work out to make the council responsible for doing it. If we're not telling them to do it, shall cause, the council shall cause, I mean, you know.
I'm back in it, this is hard for us to figure this thing out. You think the voters are gonna understand it?
Well,
yeah, because you guys are trying to word this correct. You're trying to.
Is it again, this is back to just be an administrative thing.
so just take out clerk out.
Yeah, I think you're getting that.
It should be, let the job duties and,
Yeah.
that the council would instruct the clerk, and instead of being a charter thing, just instruct her to make sure it's on the
Well,
city
I like just,
president.
I like just taking out the clerk of the council shall cause, and then the rest of the change we're talking about. Then you're not tying it to any, it puts the lap of responsibility upon the council, and that's where it should be, because they're the ones that's approving the ordinances and the resolutions, not the mayor. That makes sense.
That'd get around a lot of the problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kinda
Does
like
that change sections?
No, it's not in any particular section.
No, this one just seems to be a standalone.
It's a standalone,
And for
Yeah,
ordinances,
Article 4 is
resolutions
just
only.
ordinances and resolutions.
so it wouldn't make any difference.
So you're just saying, say the council shall cause.
Yeah.
And then
And
what else
how the
changes?
council gets-
And the rest of the change we're talking about, the medium,
Okay, that goes into after newspaper, then down to the failure, what do you do with the failure to publish thing? How you gonna word that?
I think if we put it to, personally, if I were reading this 5 years from now, and I read it, I would understand
10
the
years.
intent, 10 years.
You word it for 10 more years.
9.5.
If I read that the failure on the part of the newspaper or the electronic medium, I would understand what they were getting at. In other words, it's an external problem that caused this to it, for it not to happen. I think I would understand.
So just add those 3 words down there, leave everything else in.
Yeah, just say on a failure to publish,
Omission, delay, and error, and said,
yeah, on the, you know, if you want to be specific and say on the part of the newspaper or electronic medium, I think most people would understand what you're getting at, even if the newspaper is a piece of paper. It's still in its broadest sense, the newspaper is the newspaper and those that make up that staff. Electronic medium, it can be a failure of the server, it can be anything.
I'm ready to run with it.
Yeah, and just do it, and I think everybody reading that would grasp what we're trying to achieve. Personally, I would.
Yeah, but as a lawyer, I'm always concerned about the hostile readings, you know, twisting the words to some other way. And that, when I draft a contract, for example, that's what I do, is try to make it not only pretty clear to someone of goodwill like yourself, but also unmistakable for somebody, so that you can't bamboozle the judge.
you wouldn't do that, would you?
I wouldn't, but I know people who would.
Well, with what we're talking about changing, are we any worse off than the way it's worded as it is right now? I mean, what are we changing? And I understand what you're saying about hostile readings and all that kind of stuff, but by changing that, at least in my head, it doesn't seem like we're
Doing anything to it.
hanging out there any worse than we were the way it was. The
Yeah.
red and stuff.
Yeah, 3 words.
Same boat.
Well, the way it is now, if the paper screws up, it doesn't invalidate the ordinance. But the paper, I think even a judge would understand it when you say newspaper, in this context, you mean the newspaper publisher.
Right.
But who and what is the medium, the electronic medium? How does that fail to do anything?
Then leave in its officers, employees, and agents. That covers everybody again.
Okay.
But there's no such
But what
the
they would
electronic
say
medium
is,
of choice. Who's that?
you know, I think there would be a way to phrase it. It would be lengthy, maybe beyond what would be done tonight.
I guess
But you could narrow it down.
I don't understand why it's the medium. I guess I don't get that whether it's Facebook or something. I mean, there's somebody behind the curtain. I mean, I think you can imply.
Well, if you say the website host, and it's not the city of Heath,
Yeah.
then we're okay. But if the website host is the city of Heath, then we're back
Maybe
to
the
saying-
medium of choice would be Facebook, whereas it's not on the city's website.
Yeah.
It'd be posted on Facebook.
Yeah, and the council, yeah.
There's a way I think that we could phrase that. Failure to plug or in the case of the electronic medium, those, and I'm just spitballing here. Those individuals and entities beyond control of the city
Agents. The agents is already in there. Did I cover all that?
I mean, you could phrase it that way so that you got the same coverage through the electronic medium as you do the newspaper. We probably wouldn't figure it out tonight, but you could figure it out.
There's some Latin word you lawyers could throw in there.
Yeah, make it confusing.
The medium of choice is gonna be specified by council, so why can't you put specified specified media, and then, cause it's gonna be specified by council.
Yeah, so after newspaper, you say and/or the specified electronic medium.
Right.
Yeah.
Where at? You mean down with the failure to publish line?
Yeah, on the part of the newspaper, comma, and/or the council specified electronic
And
medium.
then still leave in its officers, employees,
Yeah.
agents, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Yeah, just put simple things in, because the more we put in, the people gotta understand that and vote on it.
That's what this document is supposed to be, simple. It's supposed to be
That
simple
sounds
to read
good.
for the public.
I vote for it.
Got
That's a
that?
great idea. Yeah, and that covers you. Yep.
Yeah.
I've scribbled on mine so much I can't read it.
So, well, let's,
You want a clean copy?
are we still saying the council, that's what's gonna start, it's gonna say the council
council
shall.
shall.
Okay, so just council, delete clerk of. Then after the second line where it says newspaper, you're gonna add and electronic medium, is that right? And then down, you're gonna put a failure to publish, are we leaving in the omission, delay, and all that stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, then it goes down to part of the newspaper, then it says what you said.
Comma,
Specified.
and/or the council specified electronic medium, comma, its officers and employees, yeah, and then you just leave the
You're
rest
adding
the
a few
same.
things, and that's great.
Council dash specified.
So you're saying the website host is the medium?
An agent,
If it, okay.
an agent of that specified
And I think
medium.
your voter, we're looking at saying the city's trying to put these things on the web page or something, so I can read. That's
Yeah,
all
because they know
that's all
that today
need to
that
know.
would be the best way to do it. But like I said, 10 years from now, maybe it's not.
Right.
My understanding of the definition of electronic medium is different from yours, but I could well be wrong, because I don't claim to know.
Electronic medium is pretty broad. Anything that's not print. TV is an electronic medium.
But it's an inanimate object, and it doesn't have any employees or officers or agents.
We all understand what the meaning is. I think we can prove it tonight, and I feel comfortable that the mayor could review once he comes up with it, because he knows what our intent is. Is that satisfied with everybody without us taking a look at it? We can vote on it
Well,
tonight.
if there's any change in wording, email us all, and if there's an objection, then shoot it back to them.
Can we, if there's a need, can we take email vote?
No, you don't do, no. But we could all, if there is a need, we can come in. for
We
2
can vote on
seconds.
it, we can vote on it tonight, and if there's some changes, we'll go ahead and schedule a meeting maybe on the 10th. Okay. 10th, good.
If we all agree on the 4, you have to show up.
That's right.
Well, I said you have to show up.
Okay? All right.
All right.
For the charter changes to 416, all in favor of charter changes on 416?
We need a motion. Do we have a motion?
We haven't did a motion, we've just been doing votes. All in favor of the changes, charter change on 216, or 416? Unanimous. First one, unanimous.
You've got 2 more votes.
So there's gonna be 2 issues
On the charter.
on the charter. One is the mayor and then 416. All of them have 32.
I thought they did more votes. I mean, I remember Kent State, the 2 other, Jim Christian, as I proposed. I mean, it's a done deal because only 2 of us are voting for it, so.
Which one did we vote on?
You did 416.
We did 416 and we also.
The
And we voted.
I thought
305.
when the athletic director said that they
The
want to be,
307.
I thought we did
they
all,
didn't
we did all the media and webbing, all that last one.
That's exactly what
Which was besides that, that's the only other issue.
Okay.
And we voted
the
on this
difficult
one.
thing is
And the only
that
2 that we're bringing forward,
Athens is a tough
416,
place to
Right.
convince
And-
some
and
basketball
the
players.
mayor,
to want to.
right?
Right.
Or am I confused?
You're right. Halloween, you got Halloween.
Right.
We got the best
Because the one on the other one is a.
Yeah. But, you know, if you have a history
Are you
of
talking about
success,
307?
you know, that,
I mean, yeah, the other
Gonzaga
2,
is out
because we
there
broke out
with
416.
We gotta make sure when they tell us, we're just publishing reports and resolutions. A lot of people are thinking we publish everything.
I was
We voted
impressed that the
That's
University
the
of
outcome of
Buckeye
the web and
uh,
all that stuff.
offer
All right,
John Gross $500,000 a year.
And there.
we're all set. Okay, thank you.
He's making more than any other basketball.
We have a motion to adjourn. Anybody second it?
I will, third.
Okay.
Jim, did you pay yet for this? I heard they doubled it.
They did.
Tripled it, what do you mean?
You did such a good job. All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Can you hand me the motion?
Hey, you going to the crawfish thing?
I got cold, I'm always sick right now, so.
Are you going to the Heath crawfish thing?
I don't, when is it?
Something's in a couple weeks.
I haven't been to one in a while.
One thing I'm sure I won't be doing it 10 years.
I don't-
Why
I think
not?
that's pretty, I mean, there'll be like side stuff, but I think that's pretty much thing, but.
Is that what it is?
You might forget how much.
Somebody
Yeah,
usually
I
gets,
get paid
I go to
another
the
way.
auction. You know what, I'm not sure I've ever been to the.
You look good.
you know,
Thanks,
I
appreciate it.
don't
Thanks for your work.
think I've
I'll
ever
thank
been
you.
able to make it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, are
I
you
saw-
going or?
I'm thinking about it.
I think,
I
when
saw
we
how
meet
that
again, I
process
think I'll meet over at Ron's office.
Yeah.
You ever seen
Just so we can get
Taylor?
away.
When we lived in Orlando.
Oh, you talking,
There
are
was
they eat
a-
them, are they suck?
Yeah, we'll meet at Ron's office.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
He gave us all
When
laughing
we lived in
gas.
Orlando, in our neighborhood, there was a family from Louisiana, and they had a Mardi Gras party every year.
Right.
So, they flew in
Thank you, guys.
crawfish, and they took the crawfish and they put it in a big Coleman cooler,
Now I can
right?
retire
And they filled it with
What's that?
water,
I can
cold
retire
water,
again.
and like poured a bunch of salt in it.
Yes, sir.
And the water turned brown. And then they emptied the water
We
out,
got the wording.
put water in it again, salt.
I think.
You know what, there were, I mean,
It ought to be,
blood and stuff out of that salt water makes them,
Yeah.